Hello everyone and welcome back to PASSTHEauxCORD, and it's March, which means we got through 2 months of, say it with me, the last year ever. 2025 has only become more of the last year ever since last time, but we got music again this time, so we're gonna talk about that today. We're like a third of the way through March. I'm a little bit late on this one, no doubt, and that ends up being a similar situation to last month where the final day of the month is a Friday. It's even worse with February because I was already a little behind because February is a short month. But March doesn't end with a Friday at least, so it'll probably be at the start of the month next time. All the yapping said and all that aside, let's get right into the albums. We're gonna go through the most popular ones, the most mainstream releases or widely talked about releases first, and then I'm going to rank everything that's a tier below in popularity from worst to best. Alright, so the first one we got out of here, gotta rip the bandage off, is Drake and $PARTYNEXTDOOR with $$, $$XE, $ong for you. Yeah, it was really nice just not feeling the need to care and give a legitimate opinion on a Drake album when this came out, but as the month continued, I realized that so little, especially in the mainstream, was going to come out of significant note that I pretty much have to talk about it for this video. That was nice while it lasted, but at least this didn't end up being as bad as it could have been. However, this is Drake at his most boring, generic, half asleep, not giving a damn, offering hardly anything delivery and lyrics wise, and basically being white wallpaper of a rapper. Constant mediocre performances across the whole thing, and it just feels like he's clocking in for work to get a paycheck and nothing else. He's saying nothing of substance here, and it hardly feels like he can be bothered to put together a catchy hook anymore. This doesn't have a God's Plan, this doesn't have a Nice for What or anything like that. Any of those big hits that we know Drake for, Hotline Bling if you want. In fact, anything on here hardly even matches up to the catchiest moments on For All the Dogs. That Drake album was far from my favorite, but I have to say it had a lot more standout songs than this one did, because this one pretty much just all washes together. I gotta give a little bit of props to the track Nokia. Nokia is fun, it's a party-ready banger to an extent. I think it's nowhere near some of Drake's best that exist within that realm, but it's an okay one. And it's pretty much the only time that the production sounds worth listening to on this as well. Everything else is doing this very spacious, R&B focused, very poppy, very polished, just not doing a lot besides acting as a bass plate type of production. Oh yeah, and PARTYNEXTDOOR is here too, I guess. He exists. This feels more like a solo Drake album for sure, and what PARTYNEXTDOOR does offer is pretty bad if you even notice it. But yeah, it really feels more like a Drake album with some PARTYNEXTDOOR features, and it especially feels that way when normally a Drake album is loaded up with features, but this one has hardly any at all. Then again, who exactly wants to work with Drake right now? Probably not the best optics, but this is just him playing it entirely safe to a point where there's not much to say at all. But what the fuck else is he supposed to do at this point in his career? When you just got called a boy at the Super Bowl, I mean, you kinda gotta play it safe. If you come out acting tough, if you come out with some sort of big statement, I don't think most people are gonna be here for it. However, if you continue to make the most standard type of music that can be played anywhere, then sometimes it's gonna get played somewhere. Next up we got Tate McRae, So Close to What? I had no idea Tate McRae was so popular. I feel like this is happening the same way it did last year for me with Sabrina Carpenter, where I'm like, this is a person everybody listens to, huh? Well, I guess I got old at some point. But based on the presentation and the way this album just looks, it's marketed, the genres it's a part of, I expected to dislike it a lot based on being pretty derivative or boring. That assessment isn't terribly far off because I don't feel like I'm hearing much of anything here that I haven't heard on many other mainstream pop releases, but that formula wouldn't exist to begin with if it didn't work to some extent, and this album is showing why it works. Some sometimes incorporating some really big catchy songs that have a lot of replay value. I can tell that this is one of those albums you'll probably end up hearing everywhere. The most sleepy and bland cuts, Nostalgia is coming to mind on here, don't do anything for me, and I'd rather not listen to them, but they're still acceptable for what they are. Overall, it's something to play outside, and that's a space in music that needs to be filled sometimes. And like, really, that is the last of the mainstream albums for the month. Really didn't have a lot of chart competition this time around, but now that we're in March, Lady Gaga has already dropped, so gonna be a little bit more competitive this time around. But the other full album that I'm going to mention before we get into the worst to best section with the slightly less popular albums is Ichiko Aoba with Luminescent Creatures. You gotta love it when an album makes you ask the bigger and most important questions in life. For me, that question is, am I fucking stupid or something? Yeah, despite it not being anywhere near my highest or lowest rated for the month, this is probably the album that I listen to the most. Every time I've come back to it, there's never been a time that I'm like, this is bad. That never has crossed my mind. I'm not even fully bored by it, but I am definitely relaxed by it. I have fallen asleep to this album, but I think it wants to be that too, so maybe that's just a positive. But looking at consensus on this is fucking crazy, because there are so many perfect scores no matter where you look. It's really Magdalena Bay from last year all over again, where I'm like, yeah, this is absolutely good and I can recognize that. Is it as good as y'all are saying though? I don't know. I guess this does kind of hit in the same way that the C418 Minecraft soundtrack, being one of the highest rated albums ever, hits. Both of these albums are just kind of soothing, calm, kind of nostalgic vibes. And like, there's not a lot that's explosive going on. There's not a lot that's really going to stand out in bold across the music, but it's just all very nicely arranged. We've got some absolutely magical sounding string arrangements and piano going through here. It all sounds very whimsical, very magical, and it has a lot of nature imagery in the lyrics, and it sounds natural. The kind of sea blue color that we have going on, mixed with the turquoise here, gives you like an ocean vibe, and I think that it fits that very well. Overall, I love the palette of the sound here. It's very pleasant. It's very nice. There's not really anything specific to complain about, especially with how this album sounds. I don't really like how it's formatted though, if that makes any sense. The opening track, Hollerachura, for example, is absolutely fantastic. However, it also feels like two songs stapled together, and I don't really know why, especially when the following track, the Coordinates one, is like only a minute long and it is separated. Like, why didn't we have a 3-track run there, or just make them all into one thing? The transition's a little better. I mean, like, the closing track kind of feels a little underwhelming. Some of the songs are like a little bit longer than I'd like them to be, even though they're not that long. I know this is going to be kind of a hot take because people do mess with the track quite a bit, but the song Tower just doesn't do anything for me. It just kind of exists for like 4 minutes. But to contrast with that entirely, I think the song Flag really exemplifies everything done right. I can listen to that one over and over again, dude. It's awesome. So maybe I just need to become a little bit more whimsical for it to click fully. However, I really did think that I was to that stage in my personal progression, so I don't know, dude. I hope I like it more when I come back to it next, but I've listened to it like 30 times, and I still did give it a pretty good score. I'm sitting at an 80 with it. It's just, I want to hear what all of the mass amounts of people giving this a perfect score are hearing. Maybe it's simply just a factor of it being very widely likable, because I can't really think of the type of music listener who would hate this. So then you balance out, and eventually a lot of those people end up favoring it. It's really an album for everybody. If you want to listen to something relaxing and it came out this year, this is your best bet. And the only other mainstream release for the month is not actually entirely an album, and it's not really that mainstream either. In previous years, I probably would have put JPEGMAFIA in the like regular lower tier of popularity type thing, but since like Scaring the Hose or his last album, And I mean, working with some really big names, it kind of feels fitting that he's on this upper echelon now. And his last album, I Lay Down My Life For You, got a director's cut, is what it's being called here. We do have new tracks sprinkled across the whole thing, and from what I understand, we're working with original mixes for a lot of these songs as well, and I think those original mixes sound a little bit better. I didn't really come back to I Lay Down My Life For You like that all that often, so I'm not maybe picking up certain things right, but I do remember enjoying this director's cut more than I enjoyed the original version. And whether that's for significantly different production choices or just because I like the new songs and I like that they're here, I'm not entirely sure. I didn't sit there and compare and contrast, but from what I understand, it's mixed a lot different. That all applies to the side A at least, and we do see a addition of a few tracks on it. Jordan Rules and Cult Status are among two of my favorite songs on the entire album now. And I'd go as far as to say that Allah is a better closer than I Recovered From This. All things considered, the first disc, as it's marketed, as it's labeled, is just a better version of the album that we got before. Then you move on to the second disc, which is kind of like a tacked on EP. So yeah, it's 7 tracks, and across those we get some new songs as well as an older mix of one and a single version of another, I guess, because you have this single version of Don't Rely on Other Men, and then you have Jihad Joe. Of the new tracks here, I like the instrumental, but that's basically an interlude, and I like the second of the bunch, Come and Get Me. The rest is fine and not really up to JPEGMAFIA standards. And Hate has a very heavy feature in it, carrying a lot of the track. Doesn't sound very good. Not gonna lie, not really a hot take. Alright, now we're gonna try to keep the yapping to a slightly smaller minimum, because it's time for the worst to best section. I did listen to a little bit less music this time around, but I think I'll be reviewing about the same amount in the video because I did a lot of my reviews just on Album of the Year last month. But the first one, all the way at the bottom here, we got Soulja Boy with The Influence, and The Influenced with a D at the end would probably be a better title for the album because this is not innovative. He's not doing anything new here. There was a time, surely, that Soulja Boy was influential. That time is not now. This is a collection of songs that are very generic and fall directly into the tropes of drill-leading trap music that we've been hearing for probably at least a good 10 years now. This wouldn't have been considered influential back in 2017, let alone now. I don't think that this is as bad as many people are saying just on a straightforward and objective level, but I would never recommend listening to it because it's a very short album, but somehow feels so long. It's a very demoralizing listen because every song is the exact same thing. Once you've gotten through the first like 30 seconds of this record, it's just over from there. It's kind of done. Jake Hill. I used to be a massive Hollywood Undead fan, so he's not the most regrettable artist that I used to be a fan of. However, if I were to make a top 10, his presence would surely have to be noted. It seems like emo rap stopped paying the bills at some point, and now he's just gone full AJR with it at certain moments on this. He's still rapping sometimes, don't get me wrong, but this has a very poppy feel to it. He's also just going a lot more melodic with it, and it hasn't really gotten less emo lyrically, but it's definitely in more of an AJR route again than, say, a Lil Peep. I can't really definitively say that the emotional expression that he's giving forward is disingenuous. However, it really feels that way, and when I'm left entirely disillusioned with the actual character, the instrumentals, the songwriting, the sound of everything would have to do some pretty heavy lifting, and that's not cutting it. There's some rock songs that are just fully rock songs on here, and I can really see the vision a lot more with those than when he goes more pop with it, but I think it would need a lot of polishing up to be something I'd legitimately call good. Next up here, it's Kill Switch Engage with The Consequence. It's been 6 years since they've dropped last, but it appears during that 6 years There hasn't been a significant amount of development going on. Kill Switch Engage is merely kill switch engaging once again, and it is just what you would expect from melodic metalcore and not a lot else. The main place that it ever loses me is within the lyrics though, because I see this with a lot of mainstream metal stuff too, so it's not just Kill Switch Engage by any means. It feels like it's riding the fence politically despite wanting to make a statement, and I can only imagine that's for the sake of greater, wider appeal, because wherever you fall on the political spectrum, you can probably identify with fighting the power or whatever, however you want to phrase it. It's just that the power in your mind is probably different people. And it's not every song that they try to do this, but you get through the first two and it's already pretty tacky. But if you're entirely ignoring lyrics and you go just based on sound alone, this is a solid enough metalcore album for what it's worth. It's produced a little bit better than the average in mainstream metal, I would say, so I gotta give it that, and the legitimately heavy sections are a little bit impressive, but nothing to write home about. Next up we got Larry June, 2 Chainz, and The Alchemist with Life is Beautiful. This album sounds like a Larry June, 2 Chainz, and The Alchemist collab album. That's not really a compliment, because why, though? Like, maybe 2 of those names together? Stitching the 3, not really doing it. Larry June and The Alchemist have worked together in the past. It worked then. It works now. It's nothing crazy. It kind of just sounds like something within the Griselda cinematic universe. Okay? It's dusty, lyrical miracle types of beats that Larry June does his thing over. It makes sense, it's there, it's fine. However, that's not the ideal environment for 2 Chainz at all. Over loud, bombastic, huge trap anthem type beats, you can get away with some of the lyrics that are more ridiculous that 2 Chainz says. Over this type of thing where you're expecting some like deep lyricism that has layers to it and stuff, you really can't be saying all that. And his delivery just kind of sounds goofy over it too, because he's so outwardly loud with it that again, you kind of need something bigger for 2 Chainz to be on. He sounds like he started rapping last Sunday when delivering lines like, "This Glock 19, it can barely drink." Next up, Inhaler, Open Wide. Just realized saying it out loud that you gotta open wide to use an inhaler. Maybe that was intention. I remember stumbling across this band's debut back in 2021, and I kind of thought they had something pretty interesting at the time. It's indie rock stuff, but it was doing something for me then. I can't say that it's still doing anything for me, and it's been quite a long time since I've went back to that debut album, so I have no idea if it was still doing something for me now if I listen to it again right now. I'm really itching for a band like The Strokes or Arctic Monkeys that we've talked about a lot on this channel that are going to be an indie rock band with some huge longevity, future classics, etc. But right now, it seems like all we ever get out of indie rock is what I've started calling movie montage indie. It just doesn't feel like there's anything going on without a visual counterpart, but it's very nostalgia baiting and sickeningly sweet in a way too, and that's how I feel about almost everything on this particular album. And I guess looking back, their last one too, which I also wasn't really into, when they get into something more lively and punchy and upbeat, such as the song Little Things on here for example, get a little bit more anthemic with it. It's enjoyable, no doubt, but overall this one's just not worth the listen because it's a little boring and doesn't really break from that. Alright, next up we got Architects with The Sky, the Earth, and All Between. Everything I said about Kill Switch Engage, copy, paste, delete the part about the political lyrics, insert like emo lyrics instead, and here we are. There's literally a chorus of like rain rain go away, like that whole like little nursery rhyme thing on here. It's doing that kind of interpolation. It's pretty corny to see bands still doing this exact metalcore thing, just like it is to see Killswitch Engage doing what they're doing, but I think this one has the higher moments overall in sound. The heavy moments are really heavy, and like that first track in particular kind of rips, especially if you're just not putting a lot of thought into it. Yeah, Elegy, Black Hole, and Evil Eyes are the ones that I would come back to if I were to come back to anything, but more than likely this is just going to be another album that falls into the endless sea of the same metalcore album once again. It's fine, dude, but like, give me something in metal this year, please. I mean, we got something. We do have something. Don't get me wrong. It's coming up. But like, it's been looking rough in the mainstream this year, I'll tell you that much. We are not getting another 2024, I don't think. Next up, we got Sam Fender, People Watching. This one reminds me a lot of the Bleachers album from last year, the self-titled, that Mr. Jack Antonoff put out, and it's got like basically the same album cover depending on how you want to look at it. Every fucking album that comes out that looks like this seems to sound exactly the same, and this is just another example of it. It's pretty close to that exact same thing I was talking about with Inhaler with movie montage indie, but like this is more folksy a little bit, I guess, but it's still like sappy and sentimental and just overly sweet and warm to the point that I don't get anything from it. It's another thing where it falls into a specific genre, but it's kind of just this little subsect of thing that exists, and I'm just not here for it, unfortunately. Frustrations with it aside, I will concede that the lyrics on here are good if it keeps you awake long enough for you to actually read through them or hear them fully, and the song TV Dinner actually bangs. It comes pretty late on the album, so it's just like a refreshing little like, oh wow, we're kind of back with this one. I don't know if he's made more songs in the past like TV Dinner. If he has, I feel like they're good. If not, then this man's music puts me to sleep. Moving on, Dream Theater Parasomnia. I'll put in as much effort into this review as they did with the AI generated cover art and tell you that the beginning of the album sounds like slimes in Minecraft, like the little clock ticking sound. I think it is. I think that's what I'm supposed to be hearing. That falls into the theme of the album, so I wouldn't be surprised. It sounds like Minecraft slimes. Go listen to it, never unhear it, and I think it's really funny. Album is fine. Next up, Big Pig. I think I'm supposed to be saying it like that. It's got two eyes. I don't know, 1111. The positive thing that I can absolutely say about 1111 is that it shows versatility. There's a lot of variety that you'll get when listening to this album in full, and it is always executed fine, or at least usually executed pretty okay. I'm reminded of artists from Biba Doobie to Dua Lipa across the whole thing. The only issue with that is that it never surpasses what it's reminding me of. You might as well just listen to the similar contemporaries unless you're really itching for something new in like dance pop and alternative pop. The vocals, for example, are, again, fine, but not really impressive enough to carry this kind of music. I could go on, but the point is that it's a not particularly good rendition of stuff that's already existed, but it's a fine rendition of it if you really feel like listening to that. Next up, we're going with Panda Bear, Animal Collective Zone. He's got a new album here called Sinister Grift. I've been a little bit more lukewarm on Animal Collective throughout the years than many might be, but I do still have my Animal Collective records that I love. Strawberry Jam is one of the albums that got me into more experimental things. However, I can say that same lukewarmness, if you will, about Panda Bear's music to an even higher extent. I know he had an album either last year or a couple years before. I don't really know, that I just listened to once, didn't review. I'm just not gonna entirely get it with Panda Bear, I don't think, because this album is an example of exactly that again. This kind of feels like a modern psych pop and indie type of band mixing with the Beatles, and that's kinda cool on paper, and in execution it's kinda cool too. But when I actually listen to the damn thing front to back, I'm like, when's something gonna happen though? It's chill, it's pleasant, it's vibey, and it's got this like island beach feel to it that I can kind of fuck with a little bit. But it's not doing anything to wow me until the last 2 tracks. Cause whoa dude, if the rest of the album sounded like that, Elegy for Oklou is awesome. I love the like spooky kind of ominous, very somber thing that one brings in. Does sound a bit like a funeral if we wanted to go there with it, but also has these weird crashing kind of sound collage elements throughout it that also add more of a tense and somehow also somber mood. Great lyrics on that one as well. And then a lot of the same, except totally different, can be said about the closer, which has a Cindy Lee feature, which was kind of cool to see. But this one's just a banger. Like, it just works. It works. And the lyrics are good. And the production's cool. Everything else kind of bored me, but those 2 tracks actually went on my playlist. And I think that's better than anything I can say for Panda Bear in the past. Because normally when I listen to his music, I'm just kind of just want to get on to the next thing. Next up here, we have another metal album, but only kind of. This being Bong Ra, with an album that mixes stoner metal or doom metal, a little bit of those sorts of things, sludge metal perhaps even, with electronic, and it does kind of feel like the title. The cover looks like the title. It's a very cohesive little piece. I do think that the things that are being mixed here come out to mixed results. Sometimes slow, heavy, droning metal mixing with electronic is just oil and water. I mean, a track like Blood Clot just isn't really doing it for me, but then you have another side of that where it's totally doing something for me. Black Rainbow is heavy, it's cool, it's got some very nice electronic elements in the mix, and I can say the same thing to a higher degree about Ruins. A lot of this is just as fucking gnarly as its cover. A lot of it didn't do a lot for me. Take your pick, it's worth a listen if it sounded interesting. Ah, shit. I can't see fuck all under here. Yeah, so St. John was an artist that was very important to me in my high school years. Ended up listening to his album Ghetto Lenny's Love Songs numerous times. So many times I have listened to that album, and I still regard it to be one of the very best in the wave of emo, melodic, and pop rap that was very popular at the time with artists like Juice WRLD and Post Malone. He did always kind of come second tier to me with Aries, but between the two of them, you had at least 50% of my music listening history for a lot of weeks that passed in high school. At the time, he started collaborating with more big names. This was in 2019, and followed it up in 2020 with what was marketed as his third album, but really wasn't that. Yeah, While the World Was Burning kind of more felt like a remix album with an EP stapled on it. The 2 best songs were already released before the album, so by the time this thing came out, I just had no reason to care. But again, still kind of looked like things were going upward for his career. You got big collaborations on there, names like JID, you got Kanye on here, you got Future on here. Future ain't doing shit good. That's one of his worst features I've ever heard. But Future's on there. He's going upwards. Then you had the huge success of the Roses remix. I have no idea how that happened, but good for him. And then the remainder of this decade passed, and it's always felt like that next big follow-up, the real third album, was right around the corner, and then it just never came out. I swear, 2022, I was like, yeah, I'll probably drop this year. 2023 comes around, I think there was even singles. I'm like, Surely that'll come out. 2024 rolls around. Dude, I'm tuned out at this point. 2025 rolls around. This shit pops up on my new music tab. I didn't even fucking know it was coming out, and this used to be one of my favorite artists ever. So that's all to say that festival season had some pretty damn big shoes to fill. It's almost impossible that it would have been worth the wait, considering a entire 5+ year gap, depending on how you look at it, and it is just pop rap music at the end of the day. Like, it's not going to be some deep, huge, profound statement, okay? This is music that you're just gonna wanna turn on to listen to for fun. It doesn't feel like it should take that long, so expectations were pretty enormous, and you can't really meet those expectations. But for whatever it's worth, festival season does achieve its goal. It was described in the post announcing that it had just come out that his goal was to create the festival, the concert experience, whatever you want to say, simulate it within an album's experience. And that comes down to having crowd sounds and, narration like you would be talking to a crowd on many tracks. But also just comes down to having many high-octane big bangers. He's incorporating the rage genre pretty heavily into this, but it's not so much that you can call it a rage album at all. A lot of the best tracks, surprisingly enough, are rage songs on here, but there's a lot more going on. You have tracks like Fuck Being Sad, which fall more in line with his more emo type stuff. It's got that emo rap feel. You can even say that about the opener to an extent, which is more of an emotional type feeling track. There's even an EDM party ready, rave ready banger on here, and that works better than you'd think it would. This is also apparently only the first half of his Collection 2 project that I feel like has been announced since I was like 16. Like, that Collection 2 name feels like it's been floating around forever. And this is already 18 songs, so that means we're looking at Collection 2 being like 30 songs long. And if it has this much genre diversity again, this is going to be the most chaotic album I have ever listened to. However, I'm here for it, because maybe it's just particularly a good thing that he's still staying with what's popular and what's working in the mainstream, because otherwise, how are you really going to get any success? And like I said, capitalizing on rage really worked out for him pretty decent on this record, so I can't really knock it, although deep in my heart, I'm like, I just want that St. John masterpiece, because as much as I listen to Ghetto Lenny's love songs, it's not a 10. Apparently, that second part is supposed to drop after he gets done with his tour. I'm planning on attending the tour because even though I'm a little lukewarm on this and not everything fully works, I'm very excited for that. I just wish that more songs had the big impact that everybody would have been waiting for. I don't feel like you have those huge replayable anthems on every song. There's many that fall to the background. I mean, just going down the line here. Poppin', Whose Ex-Wife Is This? You Need Jesus, Hide My Shame. Even the tracks towards the end, Loneliness, Real Hustler, the latter of the two being the actual closer. I'm kind of just okay with them, man. But you do have big bangers across the whole thing. Hopefully this just means he's kind of back on track, because this album's okay. And I hate that I have to wonder if I would have liked it a lot more if I had no expectations going. Alright, now we've finally gotten into the green. The score on this I gave was a 72. It's the Murder Capital with Blindness. So I listened to the band's previous album, Gigi's Recovery, liked it quite a bit, but I think more than it even being great, it showed enormous potential, and for that reason, this one, kind of like the last album we just talked about, falls a little short of expectations. Because I really wanted to hear something from them that was more conceptual, had some narrative structure maybe, or at least felt like the songs on a purely song-to-song basis really worked together, and it felt like a cohesive piece, and Blindness is absolutely not that. In fact, it's a lot more varied than Gigi's Recovery was, both in sound, approach, style, and quality. The first 3 tracks on the album, especially the first one being the opener, gave a impression that this was going to be very strong, heavy, forward push in the loudness, but then that's not even attempted on many of the songs later on the album. That all said, it becomes pretty clear that this album should be looked at piece by piece, looking at individual songs, and when you do that, it becomes a lot more great than it would be otherwise. The sum of the parts are greater than it, if that's how that would make any sense. You have great louder tracks that I've already mentioned, and then on a slower, more relaxed side of things, you end up with something like Love of Country, which is probably one of the band's best songs and biggest statements so far. But the ones that range in intensity a little bit kinda don't hit. When we're at a song like A Distant Life that lives in more of a limbo state, I'm just not into it as much because it doesn't feel like there's as much to latch onto. Next up here we got John Glacier, which is not a name that I have heard before, but it really feels like I should have, considering there's collaborations with Flume and Sampha on here. Overall though, the aesthetic of this one gripped me instantaneously, even if the name didn't necessarily, because it lives in that sort of cloud rap realm. It's spacious, dreamy, ethereal rap music, and even though it leans a little bit more towards rock or pop, depending on what song you're looking at, it still gives me that surreal feeling and it's very immersive, especially on a more maximalist track. I can really get invested on it. Unfortunately, that pretty much only applies to the production. The vocals are very sleepy, restrained, there's no real loudness, and nothing to specifically grip me. Thinking about it now, it's been almost a month since I've listened to this, and I can't really recall a specific lyric, a specific vocal inflection that did something for me. It's to the point of almost being a bit robotic sometimes, but I can't entirely fault it, as it does feel like part of the aesthetic to just be a little bit more sleepy with it. If there was a little bit more passion in it, this would be less tiring, and as it sits, it has that quality to an extent, but this is still a cool record. Next up, it was a good month for EPs yet again, and the first one we're going to be taking a look at is Tim Hecker with his EP Shards, and from what I understand, these are B-sides, leftovers, etc. from his soundtrack work, and it feels that way. There's no real consistency here, even though they are all ambient tracks. They don't necessarily feel like they go together well, but they're all worth listening to. There's only 7 songs here, so there's not a lot of room for misses, but even if there was, there'd be so little of a miss that you can just kind of skip over it, call it a day. I want to say this is like a 20-minute listen or so, which is pretty short for a Tim Hecker album and just short for an ambient album in general. So it's a pretty easy listen, and I think everything on it sounds pretty pleasant and cool. It does fall exactly where you would expect, for the most part, with a Tim Hecker release, and that's not a bad thing. Alright, next up we got one that was sent in to me from Not Marshall called My Own Garden. This is also another ambient album, so I guess I'm just feeling similarly about the ambient albums this month. This one's really cool though, and if you have not heard of Not Marshall, which considering you're here on YouTube, probably haven't, go check him out. Releasing some of the better ambient music coming out right now that I hear. Beyond ambient, this reminds me the most of Vaporwave and feelings that I would get from listening to Vaporwave, which is nice, and that means that it's going to suit my taste quite well. There's also a concept here. I believe the phrasing was, this is meant to feel like a walk through a garden full of flowers in the middle of a dream. I know I said I believe before that and then read it verbatim, but you know, give me a break. And I think that concept is executed quite well. It does feel very naturey, very natural sounding. Sometimes my immersion is broken a bit by something that sounds a little bit more abrasive or a little bit more unsettling, but overall, it still has that calming, natural feel that I enjoyed quite a bit. And I also just gotta give quick props while we're talking about Not Marshall for mixing his percussion so damn well. Always so snappy and nice. Gotta love it. Next up, we're gonna go with Young Fazo. Zo, I assume, or Zio. regardless, it took this album to remind me, once again, since Yeet, that rage can be a very fun genre despite how saturated it is. This album clocks in at less than a half hour, so even if it was wasting my time, very little of my time would be wasted, but at no point during it do I feel like my time is being wasted. It falls off a little bit more towards the end, but even then, those songs are 7 out of 10s for me. There's arguably some tracks that are a bit generic, but I don't feel like there's ever filler. We've got immaculate and creative production across almost every track here, and that goes a long way with rage. There's nothing particularly new or particularly out of the norm that I can really comment on with this, despite just saying that it's very energetic, fun, and has some creative production choices. Some like bass usage that I thought was really cool, like bass guitar, sampled into the mix that I thought was really interesting. But it's an immediate and fun listen, and the fact that I can play it on repeat really shows its worth. I am realizing now, while I'm pretty deep in this recording, that I never looked up how this artist's name is pronounced. We're gonna go with Oklou. It could be Oklou or something else entirely. The list of features on here, which include Blade and underscores, was enough to grab my attention, and the wonderful, cold, ethereal, spacey, interesting sound and production was enough to grab my ears and listen to the whole thing. Mentioning again Blade, this does kind of feel like the pop equivalent to that Drain Gang sound. It's very cold is how I would describe it specifically. The sounds are very subtle, but it's enough to build intrigue, and it's alternative enough and out of the norm enough to remain interesting front to back. I have to mention specifically JPEGMAFIA because A.G. Cook and underscores were collaborators on this track, and wow does it show. This one kind of washes the rest of the whole album, even though the rest of the whole album is still pretty awesome. That's like gonna be maybe in my top 10, top 20 songs of the year. I keep coming back to it. It's so addicting in how maximalist it is. But overall, I just love the frigid and futuristic soundscape we got going on here. It's a very cool look for pop music. Alright, and coming through here, we've got a little bit more of a independent artist that's very big in the album of the year scene, acloudyskye with This Won't Be the Last Time. I feel very similar about this artist as I did with Freako last year, just in that this is almost touching that masterpiece territory, but isn't quite all the way there yet. I'm unfamiliar with their previous work, but this one feels like it's offering sort of a poppier and easier listening, but still explosive alternative to the shoegaze, neo-shoegaze, and indie-tronica type scene that we've seen with Asian Glow, Parannoul, artists like that. There's very sweet, warm, calming melodies in the vocals and just kind of the vocal tone as a whole. And there's big, loud, kind of shoegazy and indie-tronica, again, sections, but that's then contrasted very harshly with some singer-songwriter type passages with light string arrangements that are just very relaxed and focus on getting that emotional appeal through, but not necessarily forcing you to feel it. Throughout the first half of this record, it does feel a bit generic, especially in the lyricism that's not really giving me a specific picture, and I would want a specific picture to a degree with music like this. But then we hit an interlude at some point that's like a minute long, sounds awesome, and it's just huge from there. The last 3 tracks on this album blew my mind a little bit, considering the first half, because I still like the first half, but whoa. That kind of takes it to the next level. I noticed when reading up that a Godspeed You! Black Emperor influence was mentioned, and you really get that on these last 3 tracks again, and that's especially the case for Innards. And Innards is easily my favorite track on the album. It's very angry in comparison, and the explosive moments on it are gigantic. The emotional appeal on it is gigantic to match the enormity of the sounds. But even with Innards and how much I love that song, I can still critique it because it kind of feels like it needed a little second extra explosive moment right at the end instead of just fading out leaving on a whimper a little bit. All things considered, very good, very promising record from acloudyskye here, and I can only assume that the next time implied by the title will be even better. Next one here is going to be coming from Maruja. I'm not going to even guess with the pronunciation, but you can see it up there. This is another Maruja EP, and kind of just another Maruja EP. Makes a little bit less of a significant narrative effort. There's not any lyrics on this one, they're just playing. And it's very similar to their kind of compilation called The Vault that came out last year, although that one was simply recorded with a phone in the center of the room. This one sounds like they got in the studio for it, so it is post-rock, it is jazz rock, it is very experimental, but it's also very focused, and it is just some of the coolest sounding rock music coming out right now. If you really need to dial in and focus on something, this is the one to do. Next up we have Paris, Texas with their latest EP as well. Again, pretty good month for EPs, called They Left Me With The Sword. Paris, Texas is a band that I have been into for a little while, duo more so I guess than a band. They are rap rock, they are experimental hip hop, they have really put their best foot forward with their record Mid-Air. They came out last year, I want to say, or the year, probably the year prior. I unfortunately missed them opening up for Tyler, the Creator, because I got to the fucking doors and my tickets wouldn't scan. Because, okay, this album would sound fucking awesome live, or EP rather. You got just such hard-hitting bangers across the whole thing. If you're looking for a modernized kind of Brockhampton-y, if that makes any sense, take on rap rock, this is absolutely your go-to. This also kind of feels like it's filling the space that early Injury Reserve left behind, if you're into Injury Reserve, and I really was. It's fun, it's experimental, it's loud, it's over the top, it's pretty awesome. There is one chill song on it, and that one actually works quite well here too. And I love the concept. The like medieval time sounding narrator is a cool touch, and all around the whole fantasy type theme is very fun. It's not something you would really expect to see in music like this, and I think it was pulled off well. And said concept actually continued on for yet another EP that also came out this month, called They Left Me With A Gun. And I love that it zooms out here and the other knight has a gun and appears to have shot him. Yeah, so everybody seems to be liking this one a little better. I'm not really on board with that, unfortunately. I actually listened to it multiple times the night before I'm recording this, and at first I was like, what the fuck happened? And like, the production and the mixing of it all just sounded really lame to me. Some of the vocal inflections, I mean, I'm thinking Halo in specific, I'm thinking also the verse on Stripper Song really weren't doing it for me. And then night came around, okay? It wasn't the afternoon anymore. I was driving around listening to this at night, and I did so back to back with the first EP, and I was like, actually, it's pretty okay. It's pretty alright. I like it. I like it quite a bit. I still don't think I like it as much as the first EP because I actually love this one, so I won't even do a score on the second one. But it's good. It's alright. If you like the first one, go ahead and run it front to back with the other one. They might as well have been an album, really, but then I probably would have given the first one a lower score, as it would even out. Whatever. Next up, Pissgrave, Malignant, Worthlessness. You know, it's something pretty crazy when I gotta, like, entirely blur the album cover, even though there's not any nudity on it or sexual anything. Yeah, no, dude, it's just gore. I gotta give you the warning, straightforward. Don't look at Pissgrave's album covers if you don't want to see any real-life gore. And that is where the moral ambiguity comes in here. This has a morally ambiguous album cover, not words I wanted to say or thought I ever would. That is the thing that has really stopped me from being a fan of Pissgrave in the past, because their music sounds so fucking good that I want to listen to it and I want to like it, but dude, That second album, literally don't look at it if you never have. I don't want to look at that ever. And it's like, okay, don't look at the screen then. Sure, but then I'm going to open up my fucking Apple Music again and get jump scared by that shit. Are you kidding me? Are you serious? No, dude, no. One quick glance was enough to be borderline traumatic. Very try-hard and edgy to do such a thing. I mean, it seems a little tasteless. These are people who died kind of horrifically, and like, you know, I know metal is kind of, the whole ethos is being very gory and violent like that, but like, you're kind of crossing the line into real life instead of fantasy. I mean, if these things looked just as fucking gnarly, but it was made with special effects or with makeup, etc., I would be so into it. But the fact that these are just like autopsy photos, come on, man. I mean, Carcass did it more tastefully, sort of. So I kind of feel like, you know, this has been done, but also it probably never should have been done. So if you then put all of that aside, this is one of the best metal albums that I've heard in a fucking minute, dude. It is especially one of the best death metal albums that is focused on being heavy. One of the best albums I've heard that's focused on being heavy in general in quite some time. You have a very limited track list of only 9 songs, and each one I rated an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10 because they go the extra mile in being super ridiculously aggressively heavy and doing it better than most bands out there. There is a strong argument to be made that Pissgrave is the heaviest band out. Mixing, production, also surprisingly good. This doesn't really make it sound like a big stupid wall of sound that has no discerning qualities and is just kind of a big scratchy mess like you get with a lot of extreme grindcore. So yeah, it's extreme, it's violent, it's over the top, and if you're a fan of very heavy music, this is a must listen. You just might want to like close your eyes or something. Alright, next we got another album that was sent in to me by a more independent artist, and this is Desofusiony. Please correct me if I'm wrong once again. With Art With No Meaning. An album that doesn't feel like it lives up to its title, and I guess that's a good thing. This is the second album I've heard from Desofusiony, and this feels like an improvement upon that, even though that one came out only a month ago. There's a very specific, unique blend and experience that you get from an album that this guy is out here making. I don't feel like I hear any albums that sound exactly like this. It is cloud rap taken to its most literal. It's a very foggy, hazy sound, and a lot of the time the songs aren't really exactly full songs. They come in and out with like an idea for about a minute, 2 minutes, something like that, leave you with that, and then quickly move on to the next idea. I feel like the hypnagogic pop and vaporwave influences are the special ingredient, and that works incredibly well. That has absolutely been attempted by other cloud rap in the past. I mean, I'm thinking about Smoke Dope 2016 even feels like that recent album from him had some vaporwave elements, but it's rare you ever see it pulled off this seamlessly, especially with some of like the spoken samples you get in here. It's got sound collage elements that are very unique. Rapping wise, I would say he's also a good rapper. I'm getting specific reminders of Mavi and Earl Sweatshirt throughout this, and I can't say if those are specific influences or not, but if they are, capitalizing well off of those influences, and if they're not, this is just a similar style to something I already am quite a fan of. If you're into Mavi's album from last year, like I really was, or if you're one of the many into some rap songs by Earl Sweatshirt, you'll probably enjoy his approach, and I think the lyricism is just kind of getting better as we go along too. This one leans pretty hard into the ambient side, whereas his last one didn't necessarily have that direction, and I think it's the proper direction to be leaning in. It very artfully and intentionally comes together in a way that I absolutely appreciated, and this is definitely an album that's meant to be experienced front to back, plays out like a dream, and it's very cool. So if you give it a chance, If you want to listen to it, I would absolutely recommend. I'm buying stock in Desofusiony most definitely. Moving on to our top 3. Feels like it's been an adventure to get here, but holy shit, Rebecca Black is back and killing it. I haven't listened all the way through that Lady Gaga album just yet, but I think Rebecca Black probably has the top place for pop this year so far, and I haven't seen any announcements from anybody who's gonna be making a significant competition. So this one's marketed as an LP. It is more of an EP. We've only got 7 songs here, and it is absolutely an all-killer, no-filler approach. Just as you would expect from an album that shares a title directly that has the same strange syntax as a JPEGMAFIA song, this is much more experimental than pop often gets, but it also doesn't feel like it's weird enough to where I wouldn't ever want to play it around other people. If you threw this on at a party, it's more likely that everybody'd be going crazy than everybody'd be looking at you funny. Every track is very catchy, very fun, even getting into some nice lyrical things on tracks like American Doll. It feels incredibly varied, and there wasn't a lot of room to even pull that off across only 7 tracks, but each song has its own distinct DNA and personality. The only moment across this whole record that I didn't really like that much, is the fast parts of Sugar Water Cyanide, but if I can come to you and only give you one moment, you know it's a banger. And it's a bang! Yeah, also, crazy album cover, that goes hard. It really feels like it fits the music with it. The music also goes hard. This is my favorite pop album of the year so far. I can only imagine it remains. Unless, of course, we're considering The Weeknd. And maybe we should. This doesn't quite edge out The Weeknd for me. I wasn't thinking about that the whole time. The Weeknd's R&B now, okay? He's only R&B. That's where we'll draw that line, so I can still say that sentence and have it make sense. We're almost getting to the top here. We got Squid, Cowards. Squid is part of that art rock, post-rock type sound, the windmill type scene, if you want to call it that, if you want to incorporate that in. And I really loved their debut, Bright Green Field. And when it came out, I loved Oh Monolith as well. However, somehow, that never ended up back in my rotation. I have to imagine I overrated it at the time, or I just dementia'd the whole thing away. I don't know. I meant to go back to it before reviewing this, but I just didn't find the time. So whether or not Oh Monolith is good is up for debate in my mind at this point. What I can tell you is Cowards is pretty damn good. Yeah, they're back at it, or they never weren't. I don't know, but they're in excellent form here. And really, as far as that windmill scene, whatever type stuff goes, they're kind of leading the pack. I mean, we do have Viagra Boys coming back pretty soon here, but if you think about it, Black Midi's done. Black Country New Road had a lineup change. Yard Act is mid. What else do we got going on? Regardless though, talking about the actual music, this album opens on a post-rock song that is heavy on the bass, that's about cannibalism. I was pretty much going to like it. I do really enjoy those lyrical themes, like I did mention with that opener, Crispy Skin. There's lots of literary references that have been brought up when digging in a little bit more. It feels like a series of vignettes that kind of revolve around a centric theme, but also don't. And I think that approach is very cool. If we're going to mention them again, it reminds me of what Viagra Boys did with Cave World. And just the way this album sounds, the way it was arranged, the way it was produced, the way it was put together, played, and performed is fantastic. Is it the most experimental or cutting edge thing I've ever heard in art rock and post rock? No. Is it doing the things super well? Absolute. I'm typically not really a fan of 5 to 8 minute long songs, but here they were still very digestible and feel like they come in, make their statement, and leave. This album's awesome. Alright, final album for the month, number 1, and it's for simple reasons, so I'm gonna keep it simple with you. This is Triplin, specifically his album Melody of a Memory. This is the type of album where I closed the tab when I got done listening to it and went and bought the vinyl. This is cheat code music for me to like. I love pop rap music, which kind of goes to show how ass that Drake album is. This is simply absolutely not getting enough love for what it is, but I guess a lot of people just aren't into pop rap like that. And I can also absolutely see where somebody would be coming from in not 110% appreciating Triplin's vocal style. It's a lot of pitchy vocal effects, and some of the flows are like a little bit off the beaten path, a little bit abstract perhaps. So if you're directly not going to be into the vocal feel, this probably won't work. But otherwise, I just don't see why it wouldn't. He has a very distinct personality, and I like to see that in some very accessible music. And the production is just so wonderful, dude. It just sounds awesome. It reminds me very much of that Clams Casino Six Dogs type of feel that it seems like we haven't really seen that much of since it was trendy in like 2018. Beautiful to have it back. It's very bubbly, spacey, really just brings some euphoria out. And I know that I will be replaying this endlessly, just like every pop rap album I end up hearing that I love this much. So much so that I can't even pick my favorite songs yet. That'll develop over time. All around, literally it just comes down to this sounds fantastic and I like it a lot because it sounds fantastic and it's just cool and go listen to it, dude. I don't know. If you're somebody who likes pop rap, then this is what you need to be hearing this month. One of the high scores I've given for the year. Full on 9 out of 10. We're like really pushing that perfect territory in the future for Triplin. Quite possible. For now, this one is more than good enough for me, though. Alright, so that's gonna wrap it up for February, dude. Oh boy, what a mess sometimes, though. Holy shit. Yeah, so much, like, mid came out. I don't know if y'all noticed that, but it took me so long to get around to something I loved. We have a very exciting set of releases for March, though. That's beautiful to see. March is gonna be way more exciting, and it won't have a Drake album in it. Hooray! So, I'll catch you there. Otherwise, I'll catch you in some more music-related content coming your way. So, like, subscribe, and turn notifications on for some of that. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.